Let's look at cross-contamination and understanding cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is the transfer of pathogens from one source to another. You might ask yourself, what are pathogens? Pathogens are bacteria or germs that can cause food spoilage and food poisoning. So, cross-contamination means, for example, if you have germs or pathogens on raw chicken, and then that raw chicken is placed next to cooked chicken, the germs or pathogens can jump over to the cooked chicken and contaminate it and make it go bad. It can cause safe food to become contaminated when bacteria is transferred onto food from somewhere else. For example, from raw to cooked meat on the same chopping board. We'll be looking at how cross-contamination occurs, as well as the causes of cross-contamination. By understanding what it is, you will be able to stop cross-contamination from occurring in your kitchen. The first rule of cross-contamination is to assume that every single source is already contaminated, so that you always follow the necessary procedure to avoid transferring that contamination to another source. In this lesson, we are going to have a look at the types and causes of contamination. Remember that, unless preserved, food deteriorates or spoils. And for you to keep food in an edible, safe and healthy condition, it is necessary to know what causes food to spoil. If someone eats contaminated or spoiled food, it can cause food poisoning, and it could make the people very ill, so we need to avoid it every chance we get. There are 4 major causes of food contamination: microbiological, physical, chemical, and allergenic. Let's have a look at these interesting words one by one to see if we can understand them. Firstly, microbiological contamination. The first form of contamination can be microbiological. Microbiological causes are the most common sources of food spoilage and illness from food being ingested or eaten by our guests. This food spoilage is caused by molds, by yeasts, bacteria, toxins, and viruses, which can cause the food to decompose, to go off or to go sour. You will notice that when food goes off, it starts to discolor or change its color, and it starts to smell unpleasant and become sticky or slimy. Think of a piece of chicken which you forgot about, and 3 weeks later what it might look like. This would be a good example of a possible microbiological contamination. Let's look at 3 examples. Mold. Mold appears like whiskers or fine hairs on foods, for example, on cheese or fruit that has gone off. In order to grow, mold requires warmth, it requires moisture, and it requires air. We know that molds are killed by heat and by direct sunlight. Then we have yeasts. Yeasts are single-cell organisms. They are larger than bacteria that grow on foods that contain moisture and sugar. Not all yeast is harmful. Some yeasts are used in the production of bread and beer, for example. Foods containing a small percentage of sugar and a large amount of liquid, such as fruit juices and syrups, often ferment because of the yeasts. We'll know that if we leave a glass of orange juice for too long, it starts to change in texture and flavor and often color, This is the yeast interacting with the orange juice. Yeasts are destroyed by heating them. Finally, we have bacteria. Bacteria is a microscopic organism, a really tiny organism, and it is often referred to simply as germs. But bacteria can be good and bad. They are found everywhere, on the inside and outside of humans, on and inside food, and inside animals. We even find bacteria in water, in soil, and everywhere in the oxygen and the air that we breathe. Most bacteria are harmless and are very important because they help us to break down decaying matter, and they are also used in the production of some foods, such as yogurt and cheese. There are, however, a few bacteria that are known as spoilage bacteria, or pathogens. They are called spoilage bacteria because they cause food to spoil, making the food unhealthy or unfit to eat. These pathogens can make you very ill, very sick, if they get into food. It is impossible to operate a kitchen or a business, a lodge or a hotel that has anything to do with food without food poisoning bacteria being present in the kitchen at some point or another. Because of this, it is so important that you follow the correct procedure to prevent the pathogens from contaminating the food you are working with, as this will allow the bacteria to multiply and get more and more to a level that they can cause guests to be ill because they have eaten food that you have not looked after properly. Now that we understand microbiological contamination, let's look at physical contamination. Physical causes of contamination include larger, sometimes visible things in food. For example, glass, pins, stones, or rat droppings, for instance. This type of contamination is very dangerous because it can hurt someone, both physically, for example, if a guest swallows a piece of glass, or on a microbiological level, such as the bacteria on the rat droppings contaminating the food that the rat droppings have fallen into. Then we have chemical contamination. Chemical causes of contamination include the chemicals that you use to clean your kitchen, but it can also refer to other chemicals such as rat poison, lead, or poor quality coatings on the containers that you are using to store your food. If dangerous chemicals are transferred onto our food, it can cause food poisoning. Finally, we have allergenic contamination. You will see from the name allergenic that this type of contamination refers to when someone eats or drinks an ingredient to which they are allergic. In other words, while there are some foods that are not harmful to most people, certain people are allergic to them, and they can cause these people to become very ill or even die. These types of food are called allergens. Luckily, we have a long list of common allergens that we know we have to take extra special care of to avoid cross-contamination. Some common allergens include nuts, dairy, and seafood. By understanding these causes of food poisoning, you'll be able to better prevent them and to keep your guests and yourself happy and healthy while working in the kitchen.